I think that fighting communism is an essential part of every minister's responsibility. That's the way I got into it. I was a minister that was concerned about the enemies of the church, of which communism was number one. It was very simple. Communism has emerged as the major threat to the church, here and abroad. Hence, my fight against communism.
Doctor, isn't communism primarily a political fight? Shouldn't the government be involved in this rather than religion?
No, communism is not political. Communism is an international conspiracy against God and free governments. The United States is not the only enemy of communism. The government of Great Britain, France, or any other free nation is considered an enemy by the international communist conspiracy. Their whole thesis, of course, is that religion is the opiate of the people, so their number one target is God, and subsequently governments that recognize God. I think if the ministers of the United States had been fighting communism instead of joining communist fronts and helping communist causes, as so many of them did during the 30s and 40s, the United States wouldn't, and rather communism wouldn't be as far progressed in the world as it is today. I think it's the church's job to fight communism. I remember the Catholic Church back in the 30s was alone in the United States among religious organizations fighting communism. But I take my hat off to them that they recognized it as a threat here and abroad, and they had within their church program, they had anti-communist indoctrination programs. The Protestant churches were not doing this, therefore a lot of our preachers were joining communist fronts. Some of our Protestant preachers who became officers in the Federal Council of Churches, now known as the National Council of Churches, belonged to as many as 50 communist fronts. You just can't excuse this by ignorance. They were not only ignorant, if it is ignorance, they were not only ignorant, but they were spreading this ignorance among the people, which amounted to an apathy or complacency or a misunderstanding of the communist threat.
But communism is at least partially political, is it not? Your organization has been described by some as far right. You've even had some trouble recently with the Internal Revenue Service. Is Christian Crusade political?
Let me say, I don't think that any minister is completely out of the political field. The Episcopal priest in Oklahoma City who came out for Johnson before the election was certainly in the political arena, yet Senator Monroney said that he thought that ministers had the right to have political opinions. I wonder if Senator Monroney would allow me to have a political opinion, since I supported Goldwater, as quickly and as enthusiastically as he would allow a minister to have a political opinion in favor of President Johnson. Let me say that these terms that we use, to me, are something. We read in the paper one day that Billy James Hargis is an extremist. Who says I'm an extremist? Some unknown copywriter in a newspaper somewhere attached the name extremist to Billy James Hargis. I picked up the local paper here the other night and I read where 3 extremists were going to bomb the Statue of Liberty. Now, were these extremists anti-communists? Not on your life. They were communists. They were tied in with Castro's Cuba, with the Fair Play for Cuba Committee. You remember Lee Harvey Oswald was a member of the Fair Play for Cuba who assassinated the president, a communist. They were also tied in with communist Chinese projects in the United States. And yet the press glibly throws around these words. They call the communists on one hand an extremist, an anti-communist on the other hand an extremist. Maybe to me, Clayton, you're extreme. But I don't think I have the right to attach that name to you, even if maybe I don't like you, maybe I don't like your editorial comments on television, but I think it would be most un-American and certainly most un-Christian for me as a minister to call you an extremist. And I think on the other hand it's most un-Christian for men who are supposed to be objective newsmen to call people they happen to disagree with far-righters or extremist or radical righters or ultra-conservative. This name-calling is not Americanism. These liberals today who are calling me extremists were the ones who used to criticize name-calling. They said that McCarthy called everybody he didn't like a communist. What are they doing today? They're calling everybody they don't like extremist.
Well, if there was a political scale which was graded from right to left and contained a center, where would you place yourself and your organization?
Christ said you're either for me or against me. In the Christian concept, you're either for God or against God. You're for freedom or against freedom. I am for Christ, for freedom. That's where I am. I try to stand with Christ. I'm doing what I honestly and sincerely believe Christ would have me to do. I'll guarantee you one thing. I would quit this fight against communism today, if I thought that this would be pleasing in the sight of God, because I don't like all this name calling, and I don't like all this misunderstanding and smears and everything else that I've been subjected to by the liberal press. It's not enjoyable. It's difficult to laugh when someone is lying about you and misrepresenting you in the national press and you feel hopeless. What can I do? The editor of the Nashville Tennessean today, in a speech back east, made the statement that the Nashville newspaper, he said to let Hargis be the leader in the fight against communism in America is like letting Jesse James be the head of the United Drive campaign. Well, now, how am I going to answer that man? I can say, well, he's a smear artist, which he is. I can say that he is that at least his attitude is pro-red, which it is. But all I can do is reach you and the people on one television station. This man's remarks has hit the wire services, and it's gone all over America. How can I answer these smears? I can't. So what do? I go ahead and print truth. I go ahead and broadcast truth. And it's remarkable that if I say so many lies, as some of my enemies in the national press claim, that they've never sued me for libel. In 18 years of fighting communism, there's never been one libel suit filed against Christian Crusade. Well, if I've lied about any of these people, it seems to me they could put me out of business overnight with one good ripe libel suit, because I would have no way to meet the financial demands of a libel suit, because fighting communism is not financially profitable, I guarantee you.